Daniel Cooper wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked across his fields. The sun was getting low in the sky, painting everything orange and red. He had been working since dawn, fixing fences and checking on his pigs. The work was hard, but he liked it. This was his land now, his farm, his life. He had bought the old Henderson farm 3 years ago when he left the military. The land was good and the pigs were healthy. Life was simple here on the edge of the colony. No politics, no complicated rules, just honest work and clean air. Daniel picked up his plasma rifle and started walking back toward the house. He always carried the rifle when he was outside. The colony was safe enough, but there were wild animals in the hills. Better to be careful than sorry. That was when he saw her. She came down from the sky like a falling star, but slow and careful. Her wings were huge, bigger than his house. Her body was covered in scales that caught the sunset light and turned it into fire. Red and gold and copper all mixed together. Daniel stopped walking. His hands tightened on the rifle. He had never seen anything like this before. The colony reports never mentioned anything like this. There were supposed to be no big animals on this planet, nothing dangerous, but this was no animal. This was a dragon. She landed in his field about 50 meters away. The ground shook a little when her feet touched down. She folded her wings against her body and looked at him. Her eyes were big and golden, and they looked smart. Not like animal eyes, like human eyes. Daniel raised the rifle halfway, not pointing it at her, but ready. His heart was beating fast. The dragon was close enough that he could feel heat coming off her body. She smelled like hot metal and smoke. The dragon lowered her head. Her face was as big as his truck. Her teeth were like knives. But she did not look angry or hungry. She looked tired. Then she spoke. Her voice was deep and clear. She spoke in standard, the language everyone in the colony used. Her words were perfect with just a small accent that Daniel could not place. I do not want to hurt you, human. I have come a long way and I am very hungry. If you have any leftover pork, any scraps you do not need, I would be grateful. I can pay you if you wish. Daniel stared at her. A dragon, a talking dragon, asking for leftover pork. He lowered the rifle slowly. His brain was trying to catch up with what was happening. This did not make sense. Dragons were not real. They were from old Earth stories, fairy tales. But here she was, real and solid and talking to him. You can talk. The dragon made a sound that might have been a laugh. Yes, I can talk. I can do many things. But right now I just need food. I have been flying for 2 days without rest. Daniel thought about it. He had butchered a pig yesterday. There were bones and fat and bits of meat he was going to give to his dogs or throw in the compost. Nothing valuable. Just scraps, wait here. I will get what I have. He turned and walked toward his storage shed. Behind him, the dragon stayed where she was. She did not follow him. She did not try to get closer to the house. She just waited, patient as stone. Daniel found the bucket where he had put the leftover parts from yesterday. Bones, skin, fat, some small pieces of meat. He grabbed the bucket and walked back. The dragon watched him come, her golden eyes following his every move. He set the bucket down about 10 meters from her and stepped back. The dragon moved forward carefully, like she did not want to scare him. She reached the bucket and looked inside. Thank you. She ate slowly, using one claw to pick up the bones. Her teeth crunched through them like they were made of sugar. The fat and meat disappeared in seconds. She was neat about it, not spilling anything, not making a mess. When she finished, she looked at him again. You are kind, Daniel Cooper. That is rare. Daniel felt a chill run down his back. How do you know my name? The dragon moved her head in a way that looked like a smile. I know many things. I have been watching your kind for a long time. I know that humans usually do not give without wanting something back. But you did not ask me for anything. You did not ask for money. You did not ask what I am or where I came from. You just saw that I was hungry and gave me food. Daniel shrugged. You said you were hungry. I had food. Seemed simple enough. Simple, yes, but also important. The dragon was quiet for a moment. The sun was almost gone now. The sky was turning purple and dark blue. Stars were starting to appear. Daniel Cooper, would you walk with me tomorrow? There is something I want to show you. Something important. Something you should see. What kind of something? Something that will change everything. But I cannot tell you here, not like this. You need to see it with your own eyes. Will you come? Daniel looked at her. This was crazy. Dragons were not real. but she was standing right in front of him. She had eaten from his bucket. She knew his name, and something in her eyes told him she was telling the truth. "Where would we go?" "To my home. It is not far. 2 hours by air, maybe 3 if we walk. I would prefer to fly. It is faster and safer. You want me to ride on your back? Yes, I have carried humans before long ago. I am strong enough. You will be safe." Daniel thought about it. This could be a trap. She could take him somewhere and kill him, or worse. But something told him that was not going to happen. She could have killed him already if she wanted. She was big enough and strong enough. She did not need tricks. "What time tomorrow?" "Dawn. I will come when the sun rises." "All right, I will be ready." The dragon spread her wings. They were even bigger than Daniel had thought, reaching across half his field. The wind from them pushed him back a step. "Thank you for the food, Daniel Cooper. And thank you for trusting me. You will not regret it." She jumped into the air. 3 beats of her wings and she was high above the ground. 3 more and she was just a shape against the darkening sky. Then she was gone. Daniel stood in his field for a long time after she left. The empty bucket was at his feet. The stars were coming out overhead. Everything looked the same as it had an hour ago. But something had changed. Something big. He picked up the bucket and walked back to the house. He needed to pack. He needed to get ready. He needed to figure out what to bring when you went flying with a dragon. That night, Daniel did not sleep much. He kept thinking about her eyes. About the way she had said his name. About how she had thanked him for something as simple as leftover pork. In the morning, he woke before the sun. He made coffee and ate a quick breakfast. He packed a bag with water, some food, his knife, and his rifle. He did not know what he would need, so he tried to be ready for anything. The sun came up slowly, turning the sky pink and orange. Daniel stood outside his house and waited. He felt nervous and excited at the same time. Like a kid on the first day of school, then he saw her. A shape in the eastern sky getting bigger. She came down just like yesterday, smooth and careful. She landed in the same spot. In the morning light, she looked even more beautiful. Her scales shone like new metal. Her wings caught the sun and glowed. "Good morning, Daniel Cooper. Are you ready?" Daniel picked up his bag and walked toward her. "Ready as I will ever be." "Good. My name is Verithrax. If we are going to travel together, you should know what to call me. Verithrax. That is a good name." She lowered herself to the ground, making it easy for him to climb up. There was a kind of saddle on her back, made of leather and metal. It looked old but strong. Daniel climbed up carefully. The saddle fit him well. There were straps to hold on to. He settled himself and took a deep breath. "Hold tight. We are going up." Verithrax spread her wings and pushed off the ground. Daniel felt his stomach drop as they rose into the air. Up and up and up until his farm looked like a toy below them. Then she leveled out and began to fly east toward the hills and the canyon lands beyond. The wind rushed past Daniel's face. The world spread out below him like a map, and for the first time in years he felt truly alive. Flying on a dragon was nothing like flying in a shuttle. There were no engines, no metal walls, no safety harnesses. Just Daniel sitting on Verithrax's back, holding tight to the saddle while the world rushed by below them. The dragon flew with smooth, powerful movements. Her wings beat in a steady rhythm. Daniel could feel her muscles working beneath him, could feel the heat of her body through the saddle. It was strange but also amazing. Below them, the farmland gave way to forest. Green trees stretched out like a carpet. Then the forest ended and rocky hills began. The hills got bigger and rougher as they flew east. "How much farther?" Daniel called out. The wind took his words, but Verithrax heard him. "Not long now. You will see it soon." They flew for another 20 minutes. Then Daniel saw it. A huge crack in the earth, a canyon that stretched from north to south as far as he could see. It was deep and wide, with red and brown rock walls that dropped straight down. Verithrax turned and flew along the canyon. Daniel looked down into it. There were ledges and caves in the walls. Small streams ran along the bottom. It looked wild and old and empty, but it was not empty. As they flew deeper into the canyon, Daniel began to see things. Buildings carved into the rock. Bridges connecting one side to the other. Terraces cut into the cliff faces. Windows and doors and walkways. It was a city built into the canyon walls. A city that the colonial surveys had somehow missed. And there were dragons. Lots of them. They flew past him in the air. They walked on the ledges and bridges. They sat in the doorways of the carved buildings. Red dragons and blue dragons and green dragons. Big ones and small ones, young and old. Daniel felt like he could not breathe. This was impossible. The colony had been here for 50 years. They had mapped every part of this planet. There were no intelligent species here. No civilizations. That was what all the reports said, but here was a city. Here were dragons living together, working together like any human town. Earthrax landed on a wide platform near the top of the canyon. The stone was smooth and flat, worn down by countless landings. Other dragons watched them arrive. Some looked curious. Some looked worried. But none came close. Daniel climbed down from the saddle. His legs felt shaky. He looked around at the city, at the dragons, at everything. This is impossible. The surveys said this planet was empty. They said there was no intelligent life. Verithrax folded her wings against her body. Your surveys looked for things like your cities. They looked for radio signals and power plants and roads. They looked for civilization that looked like yours. They never thought to look for us. We do not use electricity the way you do. We do not build with metal and plastic. We live with the rock and the stone. So your machines did not see us, but you are right here. You have a whole city. How did no one notice? Because we did not want to be noticed. When your ships first came, we watched and waited. We saw how humans acted. We saw how they took land and built farms and mines. We saw that they would not understand us. So we stayed hidden. We used our old skills to hide our heat, to quiet our voices. We became invisible to your instruments. Daniel walked to the edge of the platform. Below him, the canyon city spread out. There were hundreds of buildings, maybe thousands. Paths and stairs carved into the rock. Gardens growing on terraces. Young dragons playing in open spaces. How many of you are there? About 3,000 in this city. Maybe 10,000 on the whole planet. We are not many. We never were. Dragons do not breed quickly. We live long but have few children. Why show me this now? Why tell me? Verithrax moved beside him. Her golden eyes looked sad because something is coming. Something terrible. And we need help. We have been watching humans for 300 years. We have seen your wars and your greed, but we have also seen your courage and your cleverness. Last night you showed me kindness. You gave food to a stranger without asking for anything back. That is rare. That gives me hope. What is coming? Come, I will show you. Verithrax led him along a path cut into the rock. They walked downstairs and across a bridge. Other dragons moved aside to let them pass. Daniel could feel their eyes on him. He was probably the first human they had ever seen up close. They entered a large chamber carved deep into the cliff. The ceiling was open to the sky. Sunlight came down in bright shafts. The walls were covered with marks and symbols that Daniel did not understand. In the center of the room, several dragons were gathered around something. As Daniel got closer, he saw what it was. A map made of light floating in the air. A star map showing planets and suns in the dark between them. An old dragon with dark green scales turned to look at them. His eyes were pale with age, but they were sharp and clear. So this is the human, the one who gave you food. Yes, Elder Crothar. This is Daniel Cooper. The old dragon studied Daniel for a long moment. Then he gestured to the star map. Come closer, Daniel Cooper. Look and understand. Daniel stepped up to the map. It showed this star system and the ones around it. Lines connected different points. Numbers and symbols floated beside the lines. We have been tracking this for 6 generations. The pattern is clear. They move from star to star, world to world. They consume everything living and then move on. We call them the Devourers. What are they? A species unlike any other. Not truly alive, not truly machine. Something in between. They exist only to consume. They strip planets of all biological matter. Every plant, every animal, every living thing. Then they move to the next world. The elder dragon touched the map. It zoomed out, showing more space. Daniel saw a line of dead worlds, brown and gray, stretching across the sector. Each of these was once alive. Green and blue like this world. Now they are empty. Dead rock floating in space. Daniel felt cold inside. When will they get here? 400 days. Maybe less. The pattern has held steady for millennia. They will come. Does the colonial government know about this? No, your sensors are not made to detect them. By the time your scientists see the danger, it will be too late. There will not be time to evacuate everyone. Daniel looked at Verithrax. Why have you not left? If you knew this was coming, you could have evacuated. You could have gone to another world. She looked at the ground. We cannot leave. This world is our home. Our eggs are laid deep in the volcanic vents below these cliffs. The heat there keeps them alive. Dragon eggs cannot survive in space. They need the warmth of the planet. If we leave, our young will die. Our species will end, so you are going to fight. Yes, we will fight with everything we have. But we are only 10,000. The devourers number in the millions, maybe billions. We cannot win alone. You want humans to help you. We want humans to help themselves. The devourers will not stop with us. They will consume every human settlement on this planet. Every farm, every town, every city. If we fall, you fall too. Daniel sat down on a stone bench. His mind was spinning. 400 days. An invasion. A hidden civilization. A planet-killing threat. The colonial government will never believe this. They will think I am crazy. Then we will show them. We will give you proof. Recordings, data, samples, whatever they need to believe. But Daniel Cooper, you must be the one to tell them. You must convince them. Because you are the only human we trust. Why me? I am just a farmer. I am nobody important. Verithrax sat beside him. Her massive body settled onto the stone with a soft thud. You are important because you showed kindness without thinking about what you would gain. You are important because you trusted me when you had no reason to. You are important because your people might listen to you. A simple farmer who has nothing to gain from lying. A man who gave food to a hungry stranger. Daniel looked around the chamber. The other dragons were watching him, waiting, hoping. If I do this, if I try to convince the government, they might think I am working with you for some other reason. They might arrest me. They might not believe anything I say. That is possible. But if you do nothing, everyone on this planet will die. Human and dragon both. Daniel took a deep breath. He thought about his farm, about the other colonists, about the families and children who had no idea what was coming. All right, I will do it. I will try to convince them. But you have to give me everything you have. Every piece of proof. Every bit of data. I need to walk into the governor's office with evidence they cannot ignore. The elder dragon made a sound that might have been relief. We will give you everything. You will have more evidence than you can carry, and Verithrax will go with you. She will show herself to your leaders. They will see that we are real, that we are intelligent, that we can be trusted. Daniel stood up. His legs were steady now. He knew what he had to do. Then we better get started. 400 days is not much time. Governor Alan Mitchell did not look happy. He sat behind his big desk in the Capitol building and stared at Daniel like he was looking at a crazy person. Let me make sure I understand this correctly. You are telling me that there is an intelligent species of dragons living in the canyon lands. Dragons that our survey somehow missed. And these dragons are warning us about an invasion that will happen in less than 400 days. Daniel nodded. He had been in this office for 2 hours now, explaining everything. The governor had listened without interrupting, but his face had gotten more and more skeptical with every word. Yes, sir. I know it sounds impossible, but I have proof. Recordings, data files, star charts, everything the dragons have collected over centuries. And I have Verithrax waiting outside. She can answer any questions you have. The governor stood up and walked to the window. The capital city spread out below them. 50,000 people going about their normal lives. Working, shopping, raising families. None of them knew what was coming. Do you understand what you are asking me to do, Cooper? You want me to declare a planetary emergency. You want me to redirect military resources. You want me to enter into a formal alliance with a species that, until 3 days ago, we did not even know existed. All based on the word of one farmer. Not just my word, sir. The evidence speaks for itself. Look at the star charts. Look at the pattern of dead worlds. The dragons have been tracking this threat for generations. They know what is coming. Mitchell turned back to face him. If I do this, if I commit to this course of action and you are wrong, it will mean the end of my career. I could face criminal charges for misuse of resources. The sector command would remove me from office, and if you do nothing and I am right, it will mean the end of everything. Every person on this planet will die. Human and dragon both. The governor was quiet for a long time. Daniel could see him thinking, weighing options, trying to decide what to believe. Show me the dragon. Let me talk to this Verithrax. Daniel felt relief wash over him. It was not a yes, but it was not a no either. She is on the landing pad outside. She has been waiting there since we arrived. They walked out together, followed by the governor's security team. The security chief looked nervous. His hand was on his weapon. Daniel understood. This was new and scary for everyone. Verithrax was sitting on the wide concrete pad where shuttles usually landed. She had folded her wings and lowered her head, trying to look as small and unthreatening as a dragon could look, which was not very small at all. The security team spread out around them. The governor walked forward slowly. He stopped about 10 meters from Verithrax. The dragon raised her head and looked at him with those golden eyes. "Governor Mitchell, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I know this must be difficult for you to accept." Mitchell stared at her. Daniel could see shock on his face. Hearing about a talking dragon was one thing. Actually standing in front of one was something completely different. "You speak standard perfectly. Where did you learn it?" "We have been listening to your broadcasts for 50 years. We learn quickly. Language is one of our strengths. Why did you never reveal yourselves before?" "Why hide?" "Because we have seen how humans react to things they do not understand. We have watched your history through your own records. We did not think you were ready to accept us as equals. But now we have no choice. The Devourers are coming and we need each other to survive." The governor walked a little closer. "Tell me about these Devourers. What exactly are they?" Verithrax gestured with one wing. "Come with me to our city. See the evidence with your own eyes. The star maps, the data, the records. Everything we have learned over generations. Then you can decide if we are telling the truth." 3 days later, Governor Mitchell stood in the Dragon City, surrounded by his security team and his top advisors. They were in the Great Chamber, looking at the holographic star map. Daniel watched as the color drained from the governor's face. "How long have you been tracking this?" Elder Crothar answered, 347 of your years. We have tracked the pattern from before your ancestors left Earth. When your colony ships arrived, we hoped you might be the allies we needed, but you never saw us, so we continued alone." One of the governor's advisors, a woman named Linda Grant, who was in charge of planetary defense, stepped forward. "What kind of weapons do you have? How do you plan to fight them?" "We have our fire, our claws, our strength. We have some old technology, things we built long ago, but we are only 10,000. The Devourers will outnumber us 1,000 to 1. We need what humans are good at, and what is that?" Verithrax looked at Mitchell, then at Daniel. "Surviving. Against impossible odds, in terrible conditions, humans survive. You adapt. You fight. You refuse to give up. That is what we need now." Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to his security chief. "Contact Sector Command. Full emergency protocols. Tell them we have a code black situation and we need everything they can send. Ships, weapons, troops, supplies. Everything." The security chief nodded and pulled out his communicator. Mitchell looked at Linda Grant. "Get me our best military strategists. We have 397 days to prepare for war. I want plans on my desk in 72 hours. He turned to Elder Crothar and Verithrax. "You will have our full cooperation. We will work together on this. But I need something from you in return. Name it. Complete honesty. No more secrets. If we are going to trust each other, we need to know everything. Your capabilities, your weaknesses, your technology, everything agreed. We will hide nothing from you." The transformation that followed was remarkable. Within 2 weeks, human engineers were working side by side with dragons. They combined human technology with dragon knowledge of the planet. The dragons could fly without ships or fuel. They could carry weapons that were too heavy for humans. They knew every cave and valley on the planet. They understood the weather patterns, the geology, the hidden places. The humans brought plasma cannons and shield generators. They brought tactical computers and orbital scanners. They brought that special human talent for turning anything into a weapon. Together, they started fortifying the canyon city. They built underground bunkers. They set up artillery positions. They installed shield generators that could protect large areas. Dragon blacksmiths worked with human engineers to create harnesses that could carry heavy weapons. Human chemists worked with dragons to enhance their natural fire breath. They found that certain chemical mixtures made dragon fire burn much hotter and longer. Training began immediately. Dragons and humans practiced fighting together. They learned each other's strengths and weaknesses. They developed tactics that used both species to their full potential. Daniel found himself in the middle of everything. He was no longer just a farmer. He became the liaison between the two species, the translator who helped them understand each other. He learned the dragon language, which was difficult but beautiful. He taught dragons about human military tactics. He helped design weapons that could be used by claw or by hand. Every night he stood with Verithrax on the highest platform of the cliff city. They watched the stars and talked about the coming war. "Do you think we can win?" she asked one night. Daniel looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the devourers were coming. Getting closer every day, I do not know. But I know we will fight. And humans are very good at fighting, so are dragons, then maybe together we have a chance. The days passed quickly. 300 days became 200, then 100. Then 50 Sector Command sent what they could. 2 destroyers, 3 frigates, and a dozen smaller ships. Not an army, but better than nothing. The ships took up positions in orbit, ready to defend from space. On the ground, every settlement was fortified. Every colonist was armed and trained. Evacuation plans were made for those who could not fight. Children and the elderly would be taken to the deepest bunkers. The Dragon City became the center of the defense. It was the strongest position, the most defensible location. Human soldiers moved in and set up camps on the canyon floor. They practiced with the dragons until they moved as one force. With 10 days left, Daniel stood in the command center that had been built in the heart of the cliff. Screens showed data from orbital sensors. Maps covered the walls. Communication equipment connected every defensive position. Governor Mitchell was there, along with Linda Grant and the top military commanders. Elder Crothar and Verithrax represented the dragons. Linda Grant pointed at the main screen. "We have detected something at the edge of the system. It matches the signature that the dragons described. It is big, really big. The size of a small moon. How long until it reaches us? 8 days, maybe 9. But there is something else. We are detecting unusual activity in the soil and water all over the planet. Small organisms we have never seen before. They seem to be dormant, but they are everywhere." Elder Crothar made a low, worried sound. "Spores. They seed the planet before the main force arrives. When the mothership sends the signal, they will activate and become the advance army. Can we destroy them? Kill them before they activate? No, they are too small and too widespread. By the time we realized they were there, it was already too late." Mitchell slammed his hand on the table. "Then we prepare for them to come from below as well as above. Double." They came at sunrise on the 8th day. Daniel was in the command center when the alarm started screaming. Every screen lit up red. Sensors all over the planet were detecting the same thing. The spores were activating. Linda Grant was already barking orders into her communicator. "All units to defensive positions. Activate shields. Weapons hot. This is not a drill." Daniel ran outside with Verithrax. The sun was just coming up over the canyon walls. The sky was beautiful, pink and orange. It seemed wrong that something so terrible could happen on such a pretty morning. Then the ground began to shake. All across the canyon, the earth erupted. Things burst out of the soil like demons from hell. They were big, each one the size of a shuttle. Their bodies were covered in hard black armor that looked like insect shell mixed with metal. They had too many legs, too many eyes, too many teeth. They moved fast, scrambling up the canyon walls toward the city. Their mouths opened and closed, making sounds like grinding metal. Daniel had seen a lot of things in his life. He had fought in the colonial militia. He had faced wild animals in dangerous situations, but nothing had prepared him for this. The first wave of plasma fire lit up the canyon. Human soldiers opened fire from prepared positions. The weapons made bright blue streaks in the air. Some of the creatures fell, their armor cracked and smoking, but more kept coming. Dragons took to the air. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They carried human soldiers armed with heavy weapons. They dove at the creatures, breathing fire and dropping bombs. Verithrax looked at Daniel. "Stay here where it is safe. You are too important to lose. No, I am fighting too." That was the deal. We all fight together. She looked like she wanted to argue, but there was no time. She lowered herself so he could climb onto her back. Daniel grabbed his plasma rifle and settled into the saddle. Then hold on tight. They launched into the air. Daniel felt his stomach drop as they climbed fast and steep. Below them, the canyon was full of movement and fire and death. Verithrax dove at a cluster of creatures climbing the south wall. She breathed fire, enhanced with the chemical mixture the humans had developed. The flames were white-hot, bright as the sun. The creatures screamed and fell, their armor melting. Daniel fired his rifle at anything that moved. The weapon kicked against his shoulder. He hit one creature in what might have been an eye. It thrashed and fell. All around them, the battle raged. Other dragons worked in teams, coordinating their attacks. Human artillery on the canyon rim fired constantly, sending explosive shells into the mass of enemies below. The shield generators hummed, creating overlapping fields of protection over the most important areas. When creatures hit the shields, they sparked and burned. But there were so many of them. For every creature that fell, 2 more seemed to appear. They kept coming, wave after wave, like the ocean tide. Daniel heard Captain Helen Watts on the comm channel. She was leading the ground forces on the south perimeter. South perimeter holding, but barely. We are taking casualties. Request air support. Barithrax turned and flew toward the south side. Other dragons followed. They hit the creatures from above while the ground forces fired from behind cover. The fighting went on for hours, then days. The creatures never stopped coming. They did not sleep. They did not eat. They just attacked, relentless and unstoppable. On the second day, the defenders started to learn. They discovered that the creatures were vulnerable to sustained plasma fire at certain frequencies. The human technicians adjusted all the weapons to match. The dragons found that their enhanced fire could burn through the armor if they focused on the joints. Dragon and human tactics evolved together, each learning from the other. By the third day, they had developed a rhythm. Dragons would dive and burn the creatures, creating weak points. Then human soldiers would hit those weak points with plasma fire. It was working, but slowly. Daniel was exhausted. He had been fighting almost non-stop for 3 days. His arms ached from holding the rifle. His eyes burned from the smoke and fire. But he kept going. Everyone kept going. That was when the mothership arrived. Daniel saw it coming down through the atmosphere. It was huge, bigger than anything he had ever seen. The size of a small moon, just like Linda Grant had said. Its surface was covered with millions of the creatures, all writhing and moving. The orbital defense fleet engaged it immediately. The destroyers and frigates fired everything they had. Missiles and energy beams lit up the sky. Some hit the mothership, tearing chunks out of it. But it kept coming. Barithrax flew back to the command platform. Daniel climbed off, his legs shaking. Governor Mitchell and Elder Crothar were already there, staring up at the descending horror. "We cannot fight that," Mitchell said quietly. His face was gray with exhaustion and fear. "Even if we kill every creature on the ground, that thing will just deploy millions more." Barithrax looked at Daniel, then at the governor. "There is one option. Something we have been keeping secret. A weapon." Everyone turned to look at her. "What weapon?" Mitchell asked. Elder Crothar stepped forward. 200 years ago, we found a dead world, one that the Devourers had consumed. We studied it. We learned from it. We built something, a space station that your people thought was just an old satellite. It has a weapon, a resonance pulse that disrupts the neural network of the Devourers. It would kill everything with their signature on the planet, but it requires massive power, more than we could ever generate. Daniel felt understanding click into place. The colonial reactor, the main power plant in the capital. Yes, if we could connect it to our weapon just for a few minutes, the pulse would reach the mothership. It would kill everything, but it would also destroy the reactor. The explosion would be massive. It might take out half the capital city. Mitchell looked at the mothership, now so close it was blocking out half the sky. How long to evacuate the capital? 6 hours. Maybe less if we use every available shuttle and dragon. Do it. Start the evacuation now, and get your best engineers to the reactor. We need to make this connection work. The next 6 hours were chaos. Every shuttle on the planet flew to the capital. Dragons carried entire families on their backs. The military set up a defensive perimeter around the city, buying time with their lives. Daniel went to the reactor with a team of engineers and 3 elder dragons, including Barithrax. They worked without stopping, connecting cables and rerouting power systems. It was dangerous work. The reactor was already running hot, pushed to its limits. One of the engineers, a young woman named Kate Morris, looked at the readouts. This is going to work, but whoever activates it will not have time to get clear. The pulse builds too fast. You would have maybe 30 seconds before the reactor goes critical. Daniel looked at Barithrax. You should go. Get your people to safety. I can activate it alone. She shook her head. No, this is our world too. We will stand with you. All of us. The other 2 elder dragons nodded agreement. Kate Morris cleared her throat. Actually, there might be another way. If we can get to the control bunker under the reactor, It is reinforced, built to survive almost anything. And if the dragons could shield it with their bodies and their fire-forging stone technique, we might have a chance. Daniel looked at Verithrax. Can you do that? The fire-forging thing? Yes, it is an old skill. We can use our fire to harden stone, make it stronger than steel. If we work together, we can reinforce the bunker. It will not be comfortable, but we might survive. Mitchell's voice came through the communicator. Evacuation complete. The capital is empty. You are clear to proceed. Daniel looked at the team. Kate and 2 other engineers. Verithrax and the 2 elder dragons. 7 lives against a planet. All right, everyone to the bunker. Dragons, start reinforcing it. We activate in 10 minutes. They worked fast. The dragons breathed their hottest fire onto the bunker walls, using ancient techniques to strengthen the stone. The engineers made final checks on the connections. Daniel stood at the control panel. Through the observation window, he could see the mothership. It was so close now, filling the entire sky. Creatures were falling from it like rain, millions of them ready to destroy everything. Everyone inside the bunker. Now, they crowded in. The dragons surrounded the humans, using their bodies as shields. Verithrax was closest to Daniel. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. For trusting us. For fighting with us. Thank you for asking for leftover pork. She made a sound that might have been a laugh. Daniel placed his hand on the activation switch. He took a deep breath. Here we go. He pressed the switch. The pulse that erupted from the orbital station was like nothing anyone had ever seen. It washed across the planet in a wave of blue-white light. Bright as a star. Silent as death. People watching from 100 kilometers away saw the sky turn bright. They felt the ground shake. They heard a sound like thunder that went on and on. Everywhere the pulse touched, the devourers died. The creatures on the ground fell where they stood. Their bodies stopped moving, stopped breathing. In seconds, millions of them were just empty shells. The mothership, caught in low orbit, died from the inside out. Trillions of the creatures expired all at once. The massive ship began to break apart. Huge chunks tore free and fell toward the planet, burning up in the atmosphere like meteors. It looked like a second sunrise. Fire and light filled the sky. The mothership scattered into a million pieces, each one burning bright as it fell. Then came the explosion from the reactor. It was huge, a ball of fire and energy that rose into the sky like a mushroom. The blast wave flattened everything for kilometers. Buildings collapsed. Trees were ripped from the ground. The capital city, empty of people but full of homes and history, was destroyed in seconds. When the light finally faded, when the smoke began to clear, rescue teams rushed toward the reactor site. Governor Mitchell was in the first shuttle. His face was pale, his hands shaking. The reactor was gone. Just a crater where it used to be. The ground around it was scorched black. Everything was destroyed, but then someone spotted something. A shape in the crater. A structure that was still standing. The bunker. Rescue teams scrambled down into the crater. They had to use cutting tools to get through the reinforced door. The metal was warped from the heat, fused shut. It took 20 minutes to cut through. When the door finally opened, smoke poured out. Everyone held their breath, afraid of what they would find. Then they heard coughing. And voices. Daniel stumbled out first, covered in dust and ash. Behind him came Kate Morris and the other engineers. Then the dragons emerged, moving slowly. Their scales dulled but intact. Verithrax was last. She had used her body to shield Daniel and the humans. Her wings were singed. Her scales were cracked in places. But she was alive. The rescue teams erupted in cheers. People were crying and laughing and shouting. Mitchell ran forward and grabbed Daniel in a bear hug. You did it. You actually did it. Daniel looked around at the destruction, then up at the sky, which was clear and blue and empty of threats. We did it. All of us together. News of the victory spread fast. All across the planet, humans and dragons were celebrating. They hugged each other. They cried together. They had won. The orbital defense fleet reported that the mothership was completely destroyed. Sensors showed no more devourer signatures anywhere in the system. They were gone. Medical teams checked everyone from the bunker. They were bruised and exhausted but alive. The dragon's fire-forging technique had saved them. The reinforced stone had held against impossible odds. 3 days later, Daniel stood on the platform in the canyon city. The battle damage was being repaired. Dragon and human work crews labored side by side, fixing what had been broken. Governor Mitchell found him there. The Colonial Council wants to give you a medal. Hero of the colony. They want to name a city after you. Maybe put up a statue. Daniel shook his head. Give it to someone who needs it. I just want to go back to my farm. Mitchell laughed. After all this, after saving the entire planet, you want to go back to farming? I have pigs to feed. And I suspect I will have at least one regular visitor asking for leftovers. Verithrax walked over to them. She had been resting and healing, but she looked much better now. Her scales were starting to shine again. I do enjoy your cooking, human. I think I will visit often. Mitchell smiled and shook Daniel's hand. You know, this is just the beginning. Humans and dragons working together. We can do amazing things, build amazing things. The colony is going to change. For the better. Good. It is about time we learned to live together properly. In the weeks that followed, the planet did change. The Canyon City became a symbol of cooperation. Humans and dragons began building together, planning together, living together. Dragon Young learned to speak standard in schools alongside human children. Human engineers learned the old dragon techniques of stoneworking and fire forging. Knowledge flowed both ways. The destroyed capital was rebuilt, this time with input from dragon architects. The new city was beautiful, combining human technology with dragon craftsmanship. Buildings that looked like they had grown from the earth itself. Trade routes were established. Dragons could fly to places shuttles could not easily reach. They carried goods and people across rough terrain. In return, humans shared their medical technology, their agricultural knowledge, their manufacturing capabilities. But the most important change was simpler than all of that. Humans and dragons became friends, real friends. They shared meals together. They told stories. They laughed at each other's jokes. Daniel went back to his farm, just like he said he would. He fixed his fences and tended his pigs. He planted new crops. Life returned to something like normal. Except now, every few days, a dragon would land in his field. Sometimes it was Verithrax, sometimes it was other dragons, young and old. They would bring gifts. Polished stones, rare plants from the mountains, things they thought he might like. And Daniel would share his food. Leftover pork when he had it. Other things when he did not. They would sit together and talk as the sun went down. About crops and weather. About dragon history and human culture. About everything and nothing. One evening, about 6 months after the battle, Verithrax landed at sunset. She looked happy, her eyes bright. I have news. Our people are thriving. We have more eggs in the vents than we have had in a century. The young are healthy. The future is bright. Daniel smiled and handed her a plate of scraps from dinner. That is good to hear. Your species deserves a future, so does yours. And now, because we work together, we both have one. They sat together and watched the stars come out. The same stars that had once brought the devourers. But now those stars seemed peaceful. Safe. Do you ever think about what might have happened if I had not stopped that evening? Daniel asked. If I had just gone inside and ignored you? Verithrax was quiet for a moment. Yes, I think about it often. We would have died alone. Humans would have died not knowing why. The planet would have been consumed. All because of fear and mistrust, but that is not what happened. No, instead, a farmer gave food to a hungry stranger. A simple act of kindness. And it changed everything. Daniel thought about that night. How tired he had been. How easy it would have been to raise his rifle and shoot first. How close they had all come to disaster. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest actions. Yes, they do. In the years that followed, the colony would become famous. Other human worlds heard about what happened, about the hidden dragon civilization, about the alliance that saved everyone. Scientists came to study how two species could work together so well. Diplomats came to learn from the example. Artists came to capture the beauty of the merged culture. The story was told to children of both species. The story of the dragon who asked for leftover pork. The story of the farmer who gave it freely. The story of how trust and kindness could overcome anything. But for Daniel Cooper, who spent his evenings sharing meals with dragons, who watched the young of both species play together in his fields, who saw something impossible become normal, it was simpler than all that. It was just the story of how he made a friend. Years later, when Daniel was old and gray, he still farmed his land. His body was slower now, his hands not as steady. But Verithrax still visited. She was older too. Her scales faded, but her spirit still bright. They would sit together and watch the sunset, just like always. And sometimes young dragons and young humans would come to listen, to hear the story told by those who had lived it. The children would ask questions. What was it like to fly on a dragon? What did the devourers look like? Were you scared? And Daniel would answer honestly. Yes, he had been scared. Yes, there were moments when he thought they would all die. But he had also felt hope. And courage. And most of all, friendship. The young ones would listen with wide eyes. To them, the war was history. Something their parents and grandparents talked about. They had grown up in a world where humans and dragons lived together naturally. Where cooperation was normal. And that, Daniel thought, was the real victory. Not the battle. Not the weapon, but this. Children of two species playing together. Learning together. Building a future together. One evening, as the sun was setting and the children had gone home, Verithrax looked at Daniel. Thank you, my friend, for everything. For that first meal. For trusting me. For fighting beside us. For all of it. Daniel reached up and patted her massive leg. Thank you for asking. Thank you for giving me the chance to do something that mattered. Everything you do matters, Daniel Cooper. Every kindness. Every choice. They all matter. They sat together in comfortable silence as the stars came out. The same stars that had watched the beginning of their friendship. The same stars that would watch over the generations to come. And in that moment, Daniel understood something important. The universe was big and often dangerous. There would always be new threats, new challenges. But there would also always be opportunities for